Saturday evening. No, not Saturday evening.
It's Wednesday.
Wednesday evening. What am I thinking of? But it's May 30th. I know that. 2018. I guess I'm in a hurry for the weekend. And we're here for a big event that's coming on. People are coming all the way from Oak Street to come here and enjoy the program. We talked to this young lady, former district attorney, former city judge, and now world-renowned photographer, Penny Clute.
I wish.
Talked to you, Penny, a few years back, Gordy Little and I, you were showing us all your photos of Cuba.
Yes.
And we're here on this beautiful Wednesday evening. We're coming inside. You're bringing us from the beautiful outdoors inside, so it's got to be an important event. What are you going to talk to us about tonight, Penny?
Tonight I'm going to show photographs from Vietnam. My husband John and I went there this winter, just this past winter. We were there for almost 3 weeks. And I took lots of photographs and reduced them to a manageable number for a slideshow to show tonight at the Champlain Meeting House and give it some commentary to talk about what we saw, what surprised us.
Okay, so just the two of you, or was there others on the trip? I know, like in Cuba, you were more than just you, wasn't it?
Right. For Cuba, I went with a small photography group, and on this trip, John and I went with a tour company called Overseas Adventure Travel that has small groups. There were just 14 people in our group, and they really emphasize a lot of interaction with local people and learning about Vietnam and how Vietnam people live and eat and enjoy. So the food was great.
Is there any difference now? Can you go from north to south Vietnam with just like going from one part of the country to another without any?
Correct. It's all united, and we did that. We started in Hanoi in the north and went to, gosh, I have it on a map, I think probably about 8 different places. We went all the way to the south, to Saigon, which is now called Ho Chi Minh City. But we went from north to south the entire distance. Yeah.
Did John have any history in the Vietnam War? Or?
No. He was 4F because of an eye injury.
So. 4F because of bronchial asthma. So.
Oh.
Then when they started doing the lottery numbers, I had a number, so a high number, so I probably wouldn't have been drafted anyway. But it certainly lost over 50,000 American lives in that war.
And it was very so even though certainly neither of us had been there, we hadn't been to anywhere in Asia, and John had not been in Vietnam. I had a brother who was in the Air Force and stationed in Thailand, or I have a brother, I still have a brother. But we're of the age where we were in college and post-college when the war was going on, and my only information about Vietnam was what I knew from 50 years ago. And it's far different. It's amazing the amount of development there. We don't know about that here.
Yeah.
Unless you have a special interest in Vietnam,
right.
You don't have any idea what's really going on. So there were a lot of interesting things, and I'm going to show photographs.
Right, you're going to share all that with us.
Yes.
Is John going to speak too?
We'll have to see.
He's sitting up there in the leisure chair. You may not get him out of that chair. All right, so I know you've got to get set up. So we don't want to keep you out here, although it's nice enough to set up out here.
The black flies are starting, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, see if you can get John to talk to you.
All right,
but I do have to set up the projector.
All right, thanks, Penny.
Should I stand up?
If you could, yes.
Yeah, I will.
Not really that much taller.
Yeah.
So it took a lot to get John out of that easy chair.
Yeah, I know. About ready to fall asleep.
Have you gone on many of these photo journeys with your bride?
One other one to Morocco. Yeah, so I've only been on to Morocco and Vietnam.
Okay.
She's taken a few more, particularly in the U.S. and Canada. But, yeah.
All right, now I know Penny, a lawyer, and became district attorney and then a city judge, and you a lawyer for a long time.
Yeah, for many years. Yeah, finally retired from that a couple of years ago, and but yeah, most of the career was spent as corporation counsel for the city. About 75% of my time. So.
That makes it
I'm out of that. I guess I'm glad. It's like
No
government everywhere. There are all kinds of these intractable problems.
No comment on,
Yeah, I hear you.
on what's happening.
Yeah.
All right, so do you carry a camera with you, or what do you do?
Not really.
You just carry her
an
camera?
iPhone, yeah, and she seems to have a rather heavy camera bag with a lot of lenses. So
I feel like you carry
occasionally
that?
I help with that, but these photographers I learn, the serious photographers, the best time of day to take a photograph is before sunrise and just after sunset. I'm not into getting up for the sunrise.
No. You can't do both.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
it's one or the other.
Yeah, I'd settle for the after sunset part.
Yeah.
So I'll take that shift, and you can have the early morning shift. All right, so you didn't take any photos, but I'm sure you gained some knowledge on this little excursion.
Yeah, it was really quite interesting and informative. So I think Penny probably mentioned it was really surprising to me how much economic development there has been in Vietnam, and the number of really Western branded hotels, primarily I suppose hotels, but also a lot of big factories. That Samsung and
so
everything else.
although the communists won, it sounds like maybe
Capitalism ultimately
capitalism,
prevailed.
Yeah.
The tour guide who was, from Vietnam said, well, I know you guys, think of this as a communist country, but look about you and tell me, what's communist here? Not a whole lot anymore, So.
Well, do they have free elections and that kind of stuff?
Well, he was a nice guy. He was pretty candid about it. He said, we do have an elected legislative body, and there are three or four different parties, that run candidates. But said, the truth of the matter is that, all of the candidates for all of the parties are essentially blessed or selected, if not selected, blessed by the Communist Party. And he said, these other three or four parties are really just kind of like minor parties that are kind of set up jobs by the Communist Party. But he said, it's not really that intrusive, in one's day-to-day life. I tell you see a lot less police on the road over there than you do in I-87.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe because they told the line over there.
I guess, I don't know what they do, but there's not a big police presence, nor much of a military one that I ever saw.
Well, that's
very
good.
little signs of it,
we look at that, may or may not happen in Korea as we're recording this in the 2018. And that was going on at least a full decade before Vietnam started, and and still going on and never got resolved. And it's a
tremendous waste of national resources, to fight these ideological wars, I guess.
Yeah, well, I know, I feel that too, except, when you look at how 100 years ago we got into World War I reluctantly, we got into World War II reluctantly. Sometimes if you sit back and don't do anything, it's I think it's damned if you do and damned if you don't. Yeah,
there are some just wars in history, but others that in retrospect probably was.
Yeah, but I think we got into, my own thoughts are we got into Vietnam with the right idea, but the problem was we didn't get out. Once we saw that we weren't going to win, we should have got out. But
I think the problem was that we really didn't understand the history of Vietnam.
Yeah.
It was all out there for people that were students of it. But, I mean, the Vietnamese have been kind of fighting the Chinese for like 2,000 years, and this, and frankly today, just talking to people in Vietnam in terms of what tourists whose company they enjoy the most, they really very much enjoy Americans, very welcoming to them. They really don't like the Chinese. And the Koreans are number 2. I shouldn't be saying that, kind of, defaming probably the whole country.
But,
Vietnam. But but there was, thousands of years of hostility, between China and Vietnam, and, the Chinese trying to grab Vietnam. And there was times when actually Vietnam was a Chinese colony, I guess, so that's a long history that they hadn't forgotten. They really weren't going to jump in bed with the Chinese, I don't think.
Well, at least not willingly.
Yeah, no, that's true. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. So it should be interesting. We're going to go inside,
Yeah,
and you're going to.
good.
Is Penny going to allow you to talk at all, or?
yeah, well, she'll probably ask me if I have anything to say, but I'll tell her to watch your broadcast there.
Thank you, John.
I've had Reed say that.
Thank you for coming.
Anyway,
I'm Jan
only
McFetridge,
two.
co-owner of the Champlain Meeting House. Welcome. I see a few new faces and quite a few who have been here many times. We do a lot of different presentations here, author talks, and a lot of artists and book clubs and knitting groups and all sorts of fun, exciting things for the little village of Champlain. And so I'm delighted to welcome my friend Penny Clute tonight, who is, as most of you know, an awesome photographer. And she's going to tell you about a recent trip that she and her husband, right? You were both Yes? Yes. I don't think she took anyone else. To Vietnam. And I'm sorry it's a little warm in here. I just didn't realize it was going to get this hot, so I didn't put the air conditioner in. But we'll just bear with it, okay? All right, thank you.
Just pretend you're in Vietnam.
Thank you all very much for coming. You are probably Vietnam, maybe, is as mysterious to you as it was to me before going there. John and I went in January and February. We spent almost 3 weeks in Vietnam. We went with Overseas Adventure Travel. We've never gone any place with a tour company before. We've never gone to Asia before, but we selected Vietnam to go to, and a trip where they emphasize, it's called Inside Vietnam. We both highly recommend it if anybody wants to do that. And we spent a few days ahead of time in Hong Kong and a few days at the end in Cambodia, which is a far different experience. Both of them are far different experiences from Vietnam. And you may know my previous life was as a lawyer and using whichever side of the brain is it the left brain? Whichever one is the rational, deductive reasoning. But since retiring from judge and lawyering, I've really gotten very much into photography and to traveling. But so in Vietnam, in that 19-20 days, I took I think 3,675 photographs. I have reduced that considerably for tonight's show, less than 10%. But at the time of doing them, well, first I take pictures of things that, since it's all new to me, you know, things that really strike me, or, for whatever reason, the differenceness. But also, I had in mind thinking of how can I show people what I've seen. So, you know, some of the photographs are to tell a story, others are to immerse you in the traffic, or other things that are really, I think, unique to Vietnam. This oat company has only small groups. There's 14 people in our group, and they really emphasize meeting local people and learning about what life in Vietnam is like, or wherever they are, being very involved in the local part. So we're going to try this. First I'm going to mention the map, but then we're going to try with, we're not going to run it as a slideshow because there's lots that I can comment about. So Janet's my remote.
I know which one to hit.
So we're going to try that, see if we get a rhythm going. If not, I'll move there and talk from behind you. I do have, it's easier to see afterwards, but there's a big wall map actually that our tour guide gave everybody at the end of Vietnam. Now I really didn't even know where it was, what it looks like. It's a long, narrow country with a whole lot of seacoast. So Hanoi, so I have circled every place we went. So once you come up, and I'll be talking about them in the pictures, but Hanoi is here. It's all one unified country. Ha Long Bay. Places, there were place names that I knew only, from 50 years ago, war-related. I've heard of Ha Long Bay or Da Nang. It was really weird, in many ways, to be there as a traveler and experiencing a very modern culture and a non-war culture. So anyway, we started in Hanoi, We went also to Halong Bay. We did a couple of internal flights. There was bus travel between closer places and flying otherwise. So we did these two places in the north. We were several days in Hanoi. Then the central coast area, I didn't put my glasses on, so I'm thinking, what, Hue, Da Nang, probably Hoi An, right here. And there's some ancient ruins in this central area. And then down here is a place called Nha Trang, which I have just a few, mostly food. Somebody commented, I have all these on my website, and I have my cards out here if anybody wants to check. I have these and more on my website, and I've gotten some reaction that people were kind of intrigued that there was so much food in food preparation. So you can tell that's probably me and what interested me about where I was. And this is Ho Chi Minh City, known also as Saigon, way down here in the south. The Mekong Delta is below that, and that's where we ended. This is Cambodia. It says Kampuchea is its own name, but Cambodia, and we were. I don't have any photographs here of Cambodia, but I do have some. So, just to give you a little bit of an orientation. It's warm.
Do you want me to plug a fan in?
Should we turn off these lights, or?
Yeah. John,
Is that?
could you hit those light switches?
Okay. Which ones?
Just try them.
Try them all.
I have to try them.
All right, it turns it on. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
it's a little better. Right?
Yeah. I can go get a fan if you want me to.
Okay, let's try without. Unless what do folks want a fan now? Wait and see. Okay. The sun has gone down. Okay, so we'll see her again. This is there are hundreds of thousands of motorbikes. Most people have motorbikes, they don't have cars. There's motorbikes everywhere. And we'll see her again. So, go ahead.
How'd I do?
So fun. Very good. You need to keep your eyes right. So, just to orient you, that's where Vietnam is. Of course, we don't have names in all the other countries, but it helps a little bit. China is up here above its northern border is with China.
Now, I'm really terrible. Where is Korea? Is Korea totally? I'm terrible with
North Korea.
North
Yeah,
Korea.
it's the
that
two
further up the
where
Pacific?
Japan is to the left of Japan, the country that's divided into.
Up here?
That's Japan.
Japan.
That's
Korea.
Korea.
Okay.
The
that's
two
Korea right there.
divided.
You can see the line across the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on. Okay. This is what I was explaining a little bit. Hanoi, Halong Bay. We came down. You'll see pictures of these places. Hue, Da Nang, Hoi An, My Lai. It's here. I didn't realize at the time how close that was to Hoi An. We spent a couple days in Hoi An. Nha Trang, Da Lat. You'll be seeing pictures of. Ho Chi Minh City is here. Mekong Delta is here. Okay?
Is there an American country we could compare that size of Vietnam to?
Maybe California, but
I was thinking
territory-wise
California.
or population-wise?
Oh, no,
We're never going to get done.
Territory.
I was thinking California.
Territory is about the size of California.
That's what I was
Roughly the
thinking,
shape.
California.
It's thinner and longer, but yeah, about the same.
Area.
I'd say California.
Okay, typical intersection. You'll see, once you, as you go to the next one, sometimes they'll, instead of going to the next slide, it'll start a movie. There are a few short videos.
Okay.
And I don't remember if this is the traffic one or if it's right after. I think it's right after it. So go ahead.
Go ahead.
Click it again, then it'll be a video. Should be. So we are in bicycle-driven rickshaws, about to cross across all these lanes of traffic. One rickshaw per person. That's me. We're moving into the traffic. I'm holding my cell phone in one hand.
So is it cool there? They all have.
Yeah, everybody had ski jackets on. We were in short sleeves.
So it's about 72 degrees.
It was January. It was a good time to go. It was very
Oh,
comfortable.
January, yeah.
Yeah, Vietnamese roll.
Next, please. This is, when we were there, which was mid-January, it was about 2 or 3 weeks. This was our first day. This was our first day in Hanoi. So anyway, this is a typical store, but it was a couple of weeks before the New Year. Tet is their New Year. I only knew it as a phrase, Tet Offensive. We happened to be there on the 50th anniversary of the Tet Offensive. But all this gold is for the New Year. These are New Year's presents and luck. And so the stores were stuffed with gold things and red things. But so that was just a kind of a typical store. But next. Another kind of store. There are many, many small shops, open air. You'll see more ladies like she was carrying on a stick, carrying things. But this was in the evening. Go ahead. Next. And the red is a good look. These are money, I think envelopes for money. I think the red and the gold. And so, there'll be many motorbikes, much modern things, and then there are people that it seems pretty clear they're from the countryside. They're bringing produce in. They sell on the side of the street. It's a bicycle. Go ahead. Thought the sign was intriguing. Hanoi, the city for peace. Next. This picture, well, actually there's 2 reasons for this picture. You'll see more. So Hanoi has a population of, I think, close to 7 million people. Ho Chi Minh City is close to 14 million people. Very huge. But so it's like 7 million people, most of whom are on, well, I was about to say most of whom are on motorbikes. They're not in cars, but you'll see there are multiple people on a single motorbike. So there's not 7 million motorbikes probably. This green bottle is fuel. And so putting a bottle out on the street lets the drivers going by that you can get fuel there. Oh. I don't know that I ever saw a gas station. Maybe there were gas stations somewhere. So it's kind of on the, the side of the road where you get fuel for your vehicle. The other thing that we saw a lot of, I'm not sure whether the pictures will show. So there's streets. Hanoi's pretty old. Well, lots of parts of it are. There's an old quarter. So there's, like many rows of motorbikes. There are wide sidewalks that are all filled with parked motorbikes. You can't walk on the sidewalk because it's filled with parked motorbikes. So you walk in the street. Our guide, a wonderful fellow named Tuan, he would always, when we'd come in Hanoi and where else we went, we'd go for a wander. So I always wandered with Tuan. I didn't wander by myself. So you go for a wander with Tuan, and he walks in the street with his back to traffic. So that's what I did too. He goes at my pace, which is kind of slow, and the traffic sees you and moves around you. But you can't walk on the sidewalk. Next, please. This is the old Citadel in Hanoi. Next. This I took the picture. It's a little out of focus, but I took the picture because if you say it, Kong Cafe.
Oh, Kong Cafe.
The name, and I think it looks like she's in kind of fatigue greens. So I saw this as I'm going by and quickly took a picture. Like here's a whole bunch of parked motorcycles. So the Kong Cafe. Next. This is Ho Chi Minh's mausoleum. And there's the white uniformed guards, and you can't really see them probably, but there's green and white clothing. Those are school kids coming to visit Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum, and it was an odd experience. It's clearly sacred to Vietnamese. It's very important. We went, apparently they don't usually go on a Saturday morning, but there was going to be construction or something. We were supposed to go at a later time, but we came first on Saturday morning. And if you go to the next slide, I think it'd be the next. There were all of the sidewalks. There weren't motorbikes on these sidewalks around Ho Chi Minh, but they were crammed full of people. These two here, three here, are in our group. But for many blocks around, it's all full of kids. There's busloads of kids. And we walk and walk and walk, and we finally get to the end where we stood for a while, but we're all thinking, it'll be hours before we ever get in there. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, the guide thought that too, and ended up, we did something else then and did come back early Sunday morning, which is when I took the picture. But as we're walking, we started way over there, we're walking, and it's our little group of 14, and we started hearing these voices saying, hello, hello, and you look, and there's always a wave, hello, and when all these kids were waving and saying hello to us, and especially once we responded, once we realized what was going on, hello, so there's all these hellos as we walked off the block. It was really kind of fun. I kept wanting to take a picture, but it didn't seem right as they're saying hello to me.
Right.
So I didn't. But that is why I took one in this direction. It was cool. Lots of smiles to us, and lots of. I don't think anybody tried to say anything more, but the hello and the wave was very much there. Next. This is that same Saturday morning. This is another part of the block, another long line, and. So we came back early, like 8 Sunday morning, and there were not crowds of people. We didn't have to wait in long lines. There was so you get into the center area. Can you go back to where the mausoleum is? So this is all clear. They don't let people in. It's a huge, quite huge. I don't think as big as Red Square, but quite empty and huge. There's some other building, the Parliament building or something over the other side. But so you wait in line for your turn, and we didn't know what to expect at all. We're just told we're going to Ho Chi Minh's mausoleum. So you go in. While you're standing in line, these guards are very serious. Everybody has to anybody who has a hat on has to take it off. You have to take your hands out of your pockets. Can't have your camera. The guide waited outside with our cameras. And you walk in, and there's like a hallway, right, John? Kind of. There's a hallway on one side, and there must be stairs. I don't know if we got up in here or where we were. Probably. Anyway, there's Uncle Ho. There's Ho Chi Minh in a glass case, and you have to keep moving also. So you walk by. And you turn left, and you walk by, and you walk by, and you come back out the other side. It probably took 5 minutes. That you waited hours, and the school kids come to do. Wow. I mean, it's really. I mean, to me, it would seem kind of odd, but also, then realizing how important it is to them. And he's very much revered, probably especially in the north.
He was George Washington.
Yes.
He was the first.
Yes.
How come it's in English? Shouldn't it be in Vietnamese, the Ho Chi Minh?
I don't know.
Or is that
French?
Or French, yeah, right.
Well, it's. I mean, that is his name. It's not your right. It's not in Vietnamese script, but it's.
Right. Yeah, maybe it's on the other side.
So once we can go ahead now. Once you go there and come back out, there are grounds. There's other grounds, park-like grounds where you can be. This was, the French built this. Now, the French, one of the things we learned, I had heard of French Indochina, and that's about the extent of what I knew. The French were there before we were there. French came in 1896. So the French ruled Vietnam for almost 100 years. Maybe it was before 1896. They did a lot of their building in 1896, didn't they? Yeah. So this was a governor's palace or something under the French. And it's where the government expected, or the people, I don't know who expected, but Ho Chi Minh to live and have his office, but he didn't want it. It was too big and fancy for him. Maybe it was too French for him as well. So it was used for ceremonial purposes, but he did not live there. Next. There were other parts. This was his office in another much plainer, smaller building. This is Lenin.
Marx.
Yeah. So it's not the one with there was another room with a phone in it, but next. Oh, maybe I didn't have more of that. So we saw the place where he lived through the outside. You didn't really go through it, but very plain. And he was there for several years anyway, while he was the leader. So we'll see a lot of different street photographs, and this was here just because this woman, this is the first food picture. So she's, I don't know, peeling onions, I think. She's preparing. She's just on the sidewalk, on the stoop essentially, or she's making a stoop in front of this lady's house. I don't remember why we stopped there. Do you, John? What we're going? This is our guide. And I don't know who this lady is, but there are all the sidewalks everywhere, and including the eating places, have these really short plastic stools. I mean, every place had these really short stools. And I think she's not squatting on the ground. I think she's probably on one of those little stools. I know. This is a poster outside the Women's Museum, which was a wonderful museum. So it says, here's a collection to challenge # dress like a woman. And there's a woman in all these different, like emergency services kind of uniform. There's a variety of soldier in the front, other kinds of things. So, history of women's empowerment in the museum. Next. This Facebook would offer humble chatter, never show off. These are women who, there were some kind of heroes, like the mothers, like the mothers of the soldiers who fell either in the resistance to the French or in the opposition to the war against us. After the war, there were awards to women whose sons were killed, sons and husbands were killed. And I think that's who was theirs. Next. I thought it was clever. Just an interesting poster talking about how important women have been to the defense of the Vietnamese nation, starting in 40 AD. I mean, they're very aware of the role of women in the military roles.
The first woman doctor.
Commander-in-Chief of the Elephant-Mounted Troops.
Is this a relatively new museum?
I don't think it's new.
Okay.
They had I think I have a little brochure from it. They had the section, I got so involved in reading all the things. There was a section on women in the home, and a section on women in the military and in the resistance, basically. And that's where I spent all my time. I was just so fascinated. And another one, kind of fashion. Never got to that. Didn't have enough time. Spent an hour and a half on the other part. Next. I think these are the same women on their other poster. This was a room where it talked about the women, valuing the mothers that they had soldiers for their war, basically. This is a village that's on an island that we went to. This is the ferry. Goes across this little distance of water. The reason this village is known for its rice paper making, and that was noted on our, like our itinerary. And I'm thinking of rice paper as a paper for painting, like Japanese, like an art paper. It's not rice paper for rolling spring rolls.
Spring rolls, yeah.
So this whole village makes rice paper. And this is a drying rack.
Oh, wow.
For the rice papers. Go ahead. And go ahead and click it, there'll be a video. She's making rice cracker, which was delicious. And unusual.
Do you think that water was deep?
Hmm?
Across the fire, they do water was deep.
But it was deep. I don't really have Next. This is the rice paper for the spring rolls, and I click it. I don't think this is the video. Oh, it is. I don't know if you can hear him. He's telling us the recipe.
Just like grapes.
I didn't change the sound. Did I? The source. There's not talking in there, so sorry.
Look how easy she picks that up.
Then she had some of us try it. And then it rolls on.
And then rolls out. Why is it not sticking? Why is it sticking?
Let me just.
She makes
I
it
forgot
so
to
easy.
change
Looks like
the-
so easy.
Remember, I said I need to change the. I'm reminding
One
myself.
that has the,
Well, there's music from the next one.
might just be.
Where is it coming from? Here
I
or
can't
there?
tell.
So one is.
Now they just
Oh, there you go.
deep breath and state it on the pad. Yeah, so that
Looks like she's got a foot pedal there to lift the thing.
Okay, next.
Is to operate the lid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will it go to the next
It's
one?
not going.
Oh, we didn't go to play. Okay, sorry. You've got the panel down the left, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Trying it.
Yeah. Sure looks excited.
Rolling it out.
Wow.
So, yeah, so these racks are full of, they may be the circles for the spring rolls, or there's also longer sheets or rectangular sheets, depending what you're going to make with it. But everywhere, this is an alleyway or a little streetway within the village. The town square was full of these, kind of tent type of
Can you get over here?
Yep. Racks. So they're dried in the sun. And the whole, certainly the whole north, I don't know if it's the whole country, but certainly the whole north, they supply the rice papers for spring rolls.
Do you think the county health department would okay this?
There were a lot of things that were different. Next. This is the husband of the woman, so click it, he'll, is he gonna sing? Ah. It won't work? You're hitting the down arrow?
I did, yeah.
He's a retired military officer. They invited us in, so we're watching her make rice paper, he invites her in her home, serve us tea. Next, there'll be a couple little ones here. So he had 3 different instruments he played for us. Next. If you click that, I think she's.
Whoops.
Yes, so she's. And there were some photographs in the back of different people in the family. Everybody's home has pictures of ancestors, and usually an altar, basically, for ancestors. This is what we called the Hanoi Hilton, Howlow Prison, because I have a brochure on that too, if anybody wants to see it. So this prison, only part of it still remains, but the prison was built in 1896 by the French, the stone dungeon, just awful. And the main part of the museum is about the resistance to the French and the heroic Vietnamese leaders who were captured and executed, or imprisoned. These are leg irons all along there. and executed by the French. And there's quite a lot that exhibit about that. That's what really most of it is about. And it really, the Women's Museum focused on women who were leaders, many of whom are also executed. And that museum, plus going to this museum, gave me this new information and this sense, this realization that the Vietnamese had 100 years of practice in opposition, in resistance, in guerrilla warfare before we came. They had 100 years against the French, and actually 1,000 years for the Chinese before that. But there was it seemed like from reading these things, there was a lot of active opposition to the French. And there were repeated kinds of guerrilla tactics and constant awareness of the oppression. And so now there are museums about these heroic efforts. But realizing that there were 100 years of that, and of leadership development really, and of knowing, of course, their own landscape, it seemed kind of like we did recently in other countries. We're kind of arrogant about thinking we know everything about places that we don't. So anyway, these are models, but this is I don't know if it's even a barracks, what it is. People were chained like that, or clamped down like that. Next. So the main museum is about that, is about the French. And then there's this, it's more than temporary, but it's outside the buildings, kind of in a courtyard. There's a whole series of exhibit panels about the Americans, about the captured American pilots. So this is the prison where John McCain and where others were incarcerated, the pilots who were shot down. Next. And I took some of the panels. This was the one place where, well, it's about us, I guess. the propaganda is the pro-Vietnamese propaganda is pretty evident in just how things are phrased. Maybe not in this particular. Oh well. Feel the beauty and peaceful life and warm humanity of Ho prison. So from 64 to 73, this prison was used to detain American pilots. And there are photographs there of the bombing. From their point of view, the American pilots bombed Hanoi and the north, and some of them were shot down, and so they were locked up there. Next. So there's several. There were particular panels on specific pilots. I can't see who they are anymore. I thought I had one of McCain. I was looking. I went through this yesterday.
I've seen them.
Yeah.
He's in there.
And I'm forgetting the name of. I think this gentleman was a pilot who was incarcerated there, who was the first American ambassador to Vietnam after the war. He went back as ambassador. Next. Why did they come here? Talking about, why are they bombing us? Why are they killing us? And these show nurses treating the injuries of the pilots. I mean, they really emphasize the humanity of the Vietnamese, despite the horrific bombings that the Americans did. I mean, that's the way it's portrayed. Next. Just a couple more. It was interesting. Certainly the theme was that they were the innocent victims, but the overall theme, though, was of peace and of moving to peacefulness and a good relationship. Next. This is a release. Well, this was either Christmas or Thanksgiving, and here's the American prisoners fixing turkey. Very propagandish about how well they were treated. Next. But concluding, and there were many panels there, and concluding and emphasizing other ones, the moving to peace and the understanding between the countries. Nowadays, former American pilots come back to Vietnam to find their unforgettable memories in their military careers. Prison is part of their memories. Next. There was something, well, it's along the same line, but it is about going forward and building peace. I think there were some I think President Clinton went there, went to Vietnam at some point. Next. This is, these are just snatches of things. You're going to see parts of things and kind of parts of the high points of where we went. This is what they call the Temple of Literature, which is really a college, a university or a college, that was established 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago. And so some of these buildings are that old, I think. But I think it's been continuously a school, a college. It still is. There are students there, scholars. It was originally for the royal family and the royal family's advisors. Next. There are a lot of dragons in the architectural elements in Vietnam. These are like the ridge lines of the roofs. And Tuan, our guide, pointed out one time that the Vietnamese dragon is different from the Chinese dragon, at least the way he was talking about. Chinese dragon is pretty fierce. Vietnamese dragon is dancing. Is
more fun-loving.
Yes. So, next. Wow. I don't know this guy. I just liked him, but he was like on a pillar. Next. These are turtles, and on their backs are plaques in which there are carved names, or carved into the plaques are names of scholars who completed the coursework at the Temple of Literature from many, like from the 1400s. Some of these are very, very old. There are 4 sacred animals in, well, I don't know if it's in Vietnam. I guess it's Vietnam. The Temple of Literature is Confucian. It's based on Confucius philosophy, which he emphasizes a philosophy, not a religion. But a turtle is one of 4 sacred animals. Next, I think. Yes, next. So here's a turtle, and this is a phoenix standing on the turtle. The phoenix is also a sacred animal. We only know a phoenix from rising from the ashes, I think. But, and the scholar rubs for good luck at the time of exams. So the phoenix, the turtle, the dragon, and something that's a little odder looking. Well, it kind of looks like a dragon to me, but they call it a unicorn. It doesn't look like a unicorn with a single horn on it. And it's based on so I was researching, it's based on a Chinese animal, or creature, called the Kylin, or Q-I-L-I-N, or K-Y-L-A-N, but that also in more modern times has been called the unicorn. We'll see some. So there are 4 sacred animals that you see repeated in a lot of things. Next. This is within, I think that's Confucius, this is within the Temple of Literature. Just like a side altar area. Next. Just more within that. There's another phoenix on it, another turtle. Red.
Did I go too fast?
No, that's okay. Just red and gold are, again, mean good fortune and luck. I just like they're polishing the brass. So I just like the look of it. Next. These next several are about something called a water puppet show, which I'd never heard of. These are some of the water puppets. Next. This is a stage, I think. Maybe a video
is this
here.
A video or not?
Yeah, I think that, click it and see. No?
Let me go back.
Yeah, go back.
Oh.
It's about what it does. We have to listen to the whole So we went to Mr. Liam's. This is a portable stage and pool that he takes to schools. Nothing more than that. I don't know the story behind that. The meaning of the puppet.
How are they manipulating it?
People are don't step out. Move to the next one. You get the idea. So there are all kinds of creatures that do this. These are more like roosters. Maybe they're phoenixes. I don't know.
Yeah.
They look kind of birds, and they're doing the same kind of thing. They're chasing each other and battling each other. He had one. Then he had a more modern one. He had somebody on a motorcycle, and then a cop on a motorcycle coming after it. Next. There he is. That's Mr. Liam. And here's the stick. So he stands back there. And actually, I couldn't find the one. One time his wife came out too. I don't know whether he does too. Excuse me. Does it with both hands, or if she was helping as well. And apparently it's something, I don't know if it's in other countries too, but it's pretty big in Vietnam. On the grounds where where Ho Chi Minh's, that palace kind of grounds, there was I think it was there, maybe it was the Museum of Ethnology. There was somewhere else before we went to this where there was a water puppet theater, where you can just go and there's performances during the day. Next. This is Mr. Liam in his workshop.
So he makes the puppets.
Yeah, he makes puppets. His father did this, his grandfather did
wow.
this before him. So some of them are very old. Just go through, there's a couple more that show some of the puppets.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, they're all very detailed.
Are they made out of wood? Is that what they're made out of, or?
Yes.
They're wood?
A light kind of wood, yes.
Oh,
and he was
wow.
showing us in that other picture, he was showing us about how he makes them, and I think kind of a tar that
Oh, wow.
and so it floats.
Yeah.
Next. This was the they call it a ceramic village, where just like there was the one village that everybody did rice paper, here everybody does pottery. I just like that element. Next. So there'll be great big giant vases. These are shops within, there's like this little market, little mall within the village. We went to a workshop, which I think I have a few of, and then there's a place where it sells everything. Next. These are some of the little stools. This was a little eating place outside that shop.
Yeah.
Next. That's just in the village too. How laden. Everybody transports things on their bikes or their motorbikes, and it's really amazing how they get it all on, and how they balance once it's on. Next. So we're going to this man's workshop, and he's the 7th generation having a ceramic workshop. Next. He's just showing us a mold for a vase. Next. And she's pouring clay. And so just everything's hand done. Next. That's what came out of that type of mold. Next. She's gonna dunk this into this black glaze, and there's a young man over here that's kind of stenciling on those round things. Next. So, this didn't come. I think the picture originally had the whole vase in it, but she was dipping it in to make it black. Next. This guy is. This is a delivery of clay. So the truck, has clay. This other, they're either already cut in these big rectangles, or that guy's doing
He's
it.
gotta have a
This
straw
guy's
back.
carrying it.
That's gotta be heavy.
I like how
Yeah.
he's protecting
I mean, he's
himself.
gotta have a
Yeah.
strong back to do that.
So next, and then he dumps it on the ground, on the floor in the back of the shop, the clay for them to use. Here's the mold for the great big. Next. This is just somebody's home. We would go places. There were many things that the old people and the local guy had arranged. But there are others that seem very spontaneous, that is walking around, as we're going to the workshop or going someplace else, he knocks on somebody's door or sees somebody in the yard and asks if he's got some Americans here, asking if they can come in. And this lady invited us in. This village is also famous for its bricks, right? This was the village where, for centuries, they've made really high quality brick. And when we get to the ancient city of Hue, the citadel there, I think the bricks were from her husband's family. But so this was the kind of, I'm calling it an altar. They may have a different name. I don't know if you remember, John. So this is the ancestors, and the place of reverence for within the home for the ancestors. Next. And I'm not remembering if this was in the same home or what it was, but it's a similar kind of thing. Here's gifts of fruit. And you'd go by people's altars. The gifts are often, and I think they're giving gifts to the ancestors all the time. It's not just certain days. But it's what people really like. So there might be a Coke, there might be Oreos, there might be other kinds of things that seem kind of funny. This very formal, sacred kind of place, and there's the fast food that they like. Next. The Hanoi Opera House, next. We went to a performance there. This is the outside. The French built this too. French did a lot of building in Vietnam, in Hanoi area as well. So this is just the facade. It was built in 1896 also. There's a Vietnamese flag on top, and it was the first, the flagpole on top of the Hanoi Opera House was the first place that the Vietnamese flag was flown at the unification. The fall of the South and unification. People gathered, there's like a plaza. Next, we went to this interesting play. There was no dialogue. It's kind of a gymnastics. How would you describe it, John?
Yeah, I think it's modern interpretive dance, I think.
Using bamboo poles and walking on them, and doing other kinds of things. It was interesting. It's pretty small. It's very high. I mean, people, rather than people spread out, the spectators, the audience move up. Next, and this was after it. Quick little video. And it didn't do the video. So they're out in the front. People can sit there and have a picture with them. So that was the kind of music. There was music throughout the performance, and the use of it was called My Village. I think it's mostly tourists that go to it, but it was an enjoyable experience. Halong Bay is in the north, and that's what it was up to the east of Hanoi. Very mystical kind of shapes the mountains are. Go ahead. And there's many, many tourist kinds of boats that come through there. With these very abruptly mountain shapes. Next. There's a great big cave that we went to, so I'm standing in front of the cave and getting a little bit of an overview. Next. It was beautiful. This is just within the cave. They call it surprising cave. It's very large. You walk around a bit and it's quite large inside. Next. And there are local fishermen in the area. The day we arrived, whatever afternoon it was, it became sunny by mid-afternoon, and the captain said he hadn't seen the sun in a week. And the next morning it's foggy, and you'll see as we're leaving some o'clock. So this is still just a local family's fishing boat, and they probably live on it. Yeah. Next. This these are buoys. It was an oyster farm or something like that. That they had oyster farms. I think they had shrimp farms too.
I think these are oysters that they're eating there, I think.
And then next. Some more fishing families. Next. They're all very colorful, so it's quite a gathering. This was late afternoon, so I think they were done for the day. Fishing, just kind of joining back together. Next. This is the boat we were on. We were for an overnight. Oh, it was quite lovely, and you'll see food in just a moment. So this was next. This is sunset. Yeah, this is coming.
Oh, that is gorgeous.
Next. There it is. Next.
Oh, how pretty with the other boats.
It's so misty. Yeah. Next. Now we get to the food. So the food is delicious. The shrimp are from within Halong Bay, I believe. But the most notable thing, the food was absolutely delicious, and there are pictures of food. But all the carvings of vegetables, the presentation of food was fantastic. So these are different vegetables carved into flowers. Next.
Oh, how lovely. It's really creative.
I was still staring at the food.
We don't have more.
Look at the fish. Oh my goodness.
Look at this guy. Oh, here's this fish.
And that's a vegetable?
Looks like a squash.
It looks like a squash.
Yeah.
Or papaya. Maybe it's papaya.
I don't remember. And these were oysters, I think.
Oysters.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
But the carving was more impressive. Next.
Oh,
A bird from a carrot.
Oh my heavens.
And this is a salad. Next. So we all got, this is a basket. There's fish within this woven basket from carrot. So I was not the only one very much taken with the carvings. So the next morning, they brought the chef out to show us, to demonstrate the carvings. So next. Oh, sorry. This is dragon fruit, which is very delicious, which you had a lot. It has this pink.
Is it sweet? Would you say it's
Kind of sweet.
Kind of
Yeah.
sweet?
And the seeds are soft. The seeds don't bother me.
Is it like kiwi?
That's like kiwi. I don't know if it's like anything. But it's all purple. He cut away most of the peel.
So the peel is that
Is the
purplish.
Yeah. Right. Next. Okay, here he is, and young guy. So he's carving a bird. Next. Next. That's right. So he did a bird and a bat. Here's the carrot. So he did that in front of a show, but not that I could repeat it, but yeah, he carved these things. And he didn't speak English, but Tuan was explaining, talking about him. And he learned this in culinary school. That's part of the training. And at least the way I'm remembering, I don't know if it was from him or some other food thing we went to, that presentation has, well, probably it started with the royal family demanded, the queen, at whatever point there was a queen, demanded that the food be beautiful. as well as delicious. And that's been a part of culinary training in Vietnam, is the presentation and the carving. Next. He made these too. These are made from beer cans. These are chairs, very involved legs, with backs on them. Really interesting. Yeah. Next. So this is the next morning when it's very foggy, even more mysterious. And so we stayed overnight. And we had breakfast in the morning, and then we make our way back to the main harbor. Next. So there'll just be several pictures of the city, as did others. Isn't it? That landscape is really interesting. Next. There were also many boats. Actually, we're heading in, but there were many boats coming out. And help me remember, I think I asked about it, and all these boats coming out until so early in the morning were Taiwan tourists, I think. Is that,
I think
remember?
so, yeah.
I think they were tourists
That
from
one's not too far
Taiwan.
away, yeah.
There's quite a bit of that, and they were going to be going farther, so they started early in the morning. They were going to be going farther. Yeah, it was quite an operation. And the next, the main stuff that's home, where we got on the boat was quite developed tourist business of boats coming in there. Hue, H-U-E with an accent, Hue, is an ancient city, an ancient royal city. That's where some of the bricks from the ceramic village that family made. So this, you can see these guys talk about what else, our safety rules. These guys, go to the next one to see. So they're repairing, updating, rehabbing the structure.
They don't have helmets on, do they?
No, or any kind of safety strap. Next. So within, well, this is apart from the Citadel grounds. I was trying to reduce this show so we can get it. Not sure we're going to come anywhere close to an hour, but so there were much more within the Citadel grounds, and it is several hundred years old. This is where he was telling us about the Nguyen family, which is spelled N-G-U-Y-E-N. We think it was Nguyen or something. Yeah. It's pronounced Nguyen. And the guy, and so the Nguyen, there was the Nguyen dynasty for like 600 years over much of what's now the northern part of Vietnam. And Tuan, the guide, said that I think it's like about 80% of Vietnamese people who have come to the United States, their surname is Nguyen.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this is an very old pagoda that's in Hue, just as you walk farther past the Citadel. Next. And these are monks taking a selfie. So he's a monk, she's a nun. They're in front of the pagoda. That's probably what they're getting in their picture. Next. Incense burning on the grounds of the pagoda. Next. We had lunch at a monastery, or a nunnery.
I think it's actually a monastery.
We had a vegetarian lunch, which was delightful. And then I don't remember if it was prearranged or if we asked whether we could talk with somebody. But soon this young woman came out and talked to us. She was just so peaceful. So she answered whatever we wanted to ask her. I think she was around 20, and she'd been there since she was 15. Does that sound right? Very, very interesting.
And this is Confucian?
No, this is Buddhist.
Buddhist.
The Temple of Literature was Confucian, but most of the people are Buddhist. Next. That was, go back one. That's still in Hawaii, okay. So more of the, so there's a giant, really, really giant market. Go ahead. And much of it is, and there's all kinds of things. There's much fresh fish and produce, all these different kinds of fish. So she's like squatting on the tarmac with her goods there. The next person had more fish.
Oops, sorry.
All kinds of eggs. No, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
Fish, eggs. Sorry, keep going. This is food prep. She is using some kind of tool that, forget what, there are many different kinds of green vegetables that are kind of tough. And they make long, thin strings. They prepare them for cooking in a way that makes them tender and flavorful. And so these are people in the market that are working on preparing, converting these, kale leaves to something that's much more palatable. Next. So this is the market. This is the traffic going in. This guy holding this up is on the same motorbike as the child and the driver in the purple purple shirt. Yeah, so he's holding something up. It's so crowded. Next. This is dried fish. Much dried fish. Next. This is here because of Tet, the New Year. One of the prized gifts. Here's Benjamin Franklin. These are fake, but you can get a stack of $100 American bills as part of your New Year's gift. Next. Candy. So then they show, after the produce and fish, there's all kinds of, every kind of store you could think of is within this huge market. Next. Dates and such. Other fruits, probably bananas and papaya. Next. This is here. This is the street outside the market, and it's hard to see here, but it's just to tell you the story. This fellow is coming on his motorbike, bringing produce. She is a shopowner buying produce. So there's the money exchanging hands. She's buying goods from him. Next. And then this guy is a transporter who carries the goods from the street into the shop. It's a huge, huge place. So there's flour. This is the flour section. Next. This is just a typical, this is outside the market area. There's people going in both directions, lining up for go across this bridge.
Looks like DC.
Next. Just all the commotion. And I have my own. Brought my mask.
What is that for the fumes from motorbikes?
Yes, that's the main purpose. And a lot of people in Hanoi wore them. I see in that particular picture there's not so many. These are like foreigners here wearing them. But most places people did. In Hanoi, now we're in Hue. Hanoi, absolutely people were wearing these. And you could tell, you could smell the diesel or whatever it is. When we get to the woman who was on the cover picture, we'll tell you more about these. But next, this is John's experience. He'll be in the next slide. We're walking after dinner. We're walking back to our hotel. This is Tuan again, our guide. And all of a sudden he stops. He goes and talks to this lady. And she has duck eggs. And he talks to her and comes back and tells us that these are duck embryo. They're a real specialty. So she's breaking open the egg to pour out the embryo. Next.
Oh, was that raw?
Yeah, it was raw.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't try it.
Was it good?
No, it's a little hard getting the idea. Embryo of anything, really.
Oh my gosh.
What did it taste?
Apparently it's a delicacy.
Yeah, it's very tender. It does have a
Did you bite
very
it?
mild duck flavor. Yeah,
Oh,
I
nut
actually ate
flavor.
it.
Next. This just, we've seen so much of Old Hawaii. This is actually the hotel we were in. We stayed in very nice hotels with this organization. And the breakfast was like on the 11th floor, and this was out the window. So this is a skyscraper being built on top of another building that's already there. So there's certainly modern things going on. Next. This will be, it's called Mison. The ruins, they're from the Champa people. You can go to the next. So they're they're ancient temples. They're from the 4th to the 13th centuries. So beginning the 4th century. So this is in central Vietnam. It's just kind of halfway down the coast. The Mison Champa people. The temples were to Shiva, Hindu god Shiva. There were, trying to remember, the Champa people came from farther north, but they were not from India, but they were heavily influenced by India and Hinduism, who were the royal family at that time. So these temples are to Shiva, but they are older than Angkor Wat. That gets all the, in Cambodia, gets all the attention. So go ahead, next one. Some of the ruins. And you can see all the carvings, you know, they're very intricate. I think the French discovered everything, it seems like. So I think the French discovered this and started, you know, unburying them. These are pedestals that previously had something else on them. Next. I took this picture because the guide, Tuan, was telling us that these columns appear to be Greek.
That's what I was going to say. They look Greek.
Yeah, yeah, you've been to Greece. They're very similar, right? And so the scholars are, as I understand it, are thinking that this shows, you know, the influence, some cross-cultural trade and influence that they had some influence of Greek culture to have made these.
Yeah.
Next. Again, just to show, the other thing, this brick, I guess the other significant thing, one of the significant things about the Mison ruins is that the brick has not decayed. And at least according to Tuan in his reading, the modern, you know, contemporary scientists don't really know why. You know, what it is that I mean, they must have analyzed the brick and know what the content is, but they don't really know why. It's a very humid climate. They certainly have gotten wet.
What's preserving it?
They're,
I wonder what's preserving it like that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's not it's not stone. It's
brick,
made from a
right? And that's
material.
also right unusual that it's made from brick, not stone. This is stone,
Yeah.
but the red is brick, and it's centuries old, many centuries old.
Interesting.
Next.
Oh, that is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, even where it's carved, it's still, you can clearly see the pattern, delineation. Next. Just this. Next. The tablet that's there in Sanskrit.
I was going to say that. It's Sanskrit.
Next. This, I was writing notes
It's
to
a
myself.
sacrificial table, I'll bet.
No, it's,
A fountain, maybe?
no, go to the next one and then we'll come back to this. So here's Shiva, here's the god Shiva, who is a male god, and he's sitting on a female. And but he doesn't have his head. people may have stolen the heads, I guess they think. So go back one. So the base is very similar, but this is quite abstract. He looks very modern, really. But that represents Shiva. The pillar shape on top is called lingam, L-I-N-G-A-M, or a Shiva linga. It's an abstract representation of the Hindu deity Shiva. The lingam is often resting on Yoni, Y-O-N-I, which is a symbol of the goddess Durga or Shakti. Also said to be stylized female genitalia. Always has this. So you see that part is, you go back again to the next one. So whoops, what happened to Shiva? There, the female part is very much the same.
It looks similar to some of the Incan things that we saw where there were sacrifices and that tray was to collect blood.
This would be the altar?
No, the next one back, the one before that.
Well, this had
the tray to collect the blood.
Okay.
You know, as part of the sacrifice.
Next. This is just, we had on the way back from Misong, we stopped at this pineapple lady. Everywhere on the streets you'd see pineapple, and they're all carved in this, the way she's doing it. So go ahead, there's no video of her carving. So you can buy these on the street all prepared. So they cut out all the eyes, but you do it in a diagonal way, you get more eyes that way and save more pineapple. Next. So you can cut them in quarters or whatever.
So were you eating food from the street?
We ate a pineapple. We ate some. We ate some street food, not a lot. We asked Twan. Duck embryo and pineapple. This is in Da Nang. The Dragon Bridge, which is a pretty recent, pretty modern bridge. But it's really cool. And we walked across it, we walked up. So here we are at the other end. Here's the tail looking back. It's really neat. Next. Hoi An is an old city. I guess we better go faster, huh, Jenna? This is Phoenix, sacred animal. The ancient city, there's an ancient town which is over here in Hoi An. It's a very ancient seaport. And we're on the more modern side. So we're going to see the four animals, sacred animals, the phoenix. Go ahead. Turtle.
What was the turtle? The dragon?
No, we thought it was a dragon, but it's the other one, the unicorn, the coyote. Next. Because this is clearly the dragon. That looked like the dragon until I saw this one. Yeah. Next. Here's some street food. Crabs. And potato. Next, here's the potato being cooked in the oil. It's on this long string, that's all. We went to a cooking class.
Oh, there you are!
Very corny chef. Everybody come up. Next, Hoi An is famous for its silk, and especially its silk lanterns.
Oh, those are beautiful.
Next. So these are street scenes within the ancient town. This is a Japanese bridge that's several centuries old. Probably tells us they're early 17th century. Next. This was within the bridge. Once you go in the bridge, which is kind of dark and covered with tourists, but there was this sign for, there's a collection box for ancient orange sufferers. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Next. Another Kong Cafe. There's the sign up here. But we can move on. I thought that was cool, but we can move on. These ladies are part of a wedding party. It's the tradition there, as I understand it, to do wedding pictures before the wedding. And there are couples and different people from the wedding party in all different locations for, I think, a week or two before the wedding, having pictures taken in different places.
They were taking
Next.
wedding pictures.
So this is a typical street. There's, you know, with all different kinds of conveyances and people, very old. This was in the ancient town, so this is a very old building. She's carrying things in a traditional way. Here's a guy on a motorbike. Next. Then I went to a museum about traditional crafts. We better move on. This is silkworms. So the museum showed about silk production. This is mulberry branches with cocoons of silkworms on them. Isn't that interesting? You know, and who was the first person to realize that, to think that all these mulberry trees are serving a useful purpose? So just different stages of silk production.
Wow.
More lanterns. They're really beautiful. The shapes, the colors, they're very vivid. Go ahead, next. Dresses.
Oh, those dresses.
Yeah.
Did you buy one? I was going to say, did you buy one? No. Did you get a lantern at least?
We went to the workshop and made our own lanterns.
Oh, good for you.
And this week we were trying to open them back. They collapsed them so you could take them. We can't figure out how to open them back.
Oh, no.
We bought little lights to
Oh, no.
next. While we were there, we're in Halong Bay on our boat, and Tuan gets a call from somebody, and they're telling him, and so he sounds all excited. We ask him, that particular day was the semifinals of the Asia Cup, and Vietnam won the semifinal game, and they had never gone that far before. They're all excited.
Oh.
So this day, so here's the sign for the team. They ended up being, go ahead next. So we're in Hoi An, I think it was a Saturday, I'm not positive, but it's that afternoon is the finals, and they're playing Kyrgyzstan, right?
Right.
In China. We were supposed to be doing something else that day, but it was raining in the morning, and he was clearly so excited. Everybody was so excited about the game that we all said, let's not go do what we were going to do. Let's watch the game. Is there a place where there's big screens and we can watch the game? And he said, yeah, I thought so. Then we saw people in these shirts, and I said, can we get shirts like that? Can we go? So we then spent probably an hour, because most of the shirts are smaller size than a lot of Americans walking around. So it took a while to find the quadruple X that we needed. So these were girls working in the shops, the souvenir shops and so on. So they're taking a selfie of themselves. So this is the day of the final. Next. And I don't have, so this Vodhi was, I forget what it means, but that was their rallying cry. U23 is the name of what the team's called. So we are now in a cafe, ready to watch, ready to watch on TV the final game. And it was really cool. We just went to a local cafe. Here's motorbikes parked everywhere. There's people going by. There's 4 people on that motorbike. I mean, 2 kids. Go ahead and go through them. Yeah. So I actually have my shirt. So we all bought shirts. We went to lunch, we all changed, we put our shirts on. We're in this restaurant with our shirts on. That's before this. This is about 3 o'clock when the game started. And then when we left to go, so in the restaurant, the waiters and people were happy, they were excited that we had these on. We go out, we start walking down the street, there's 14 of us in these shirts, and we're clearly not Vietnamese. Tourists started taking our pictures. Vietnamese people would come up and shake our hands and take selfies with us. It was really neat. So we had quite a walk.
They were proud.
Yeah. So there's a great big TV screen over here. So these are just people gathered. Keep going. Sorry, gathered for the Asia Cup. There we go. This young man came up to John first. Next one. And he asked if he could speak English with him. And he spoke quite well, right, John? Talk about him. Do you remember how old he said he was?
No, I think he was in like 4th grade or something. He spoke very good English.
So they teach him English in the school system there? Is
Yeah,
that
in the
there's like a
elementary
language?
schools, actually.
They teach him English? Wow.
And he was very mature, very comfortable conversing, right?
I mean, we were here to watch the game, and he had no interest in the game. He wanted to, I don't know, talk about history and literature, I guess.
Next. That was pretty neat. Okay.
Did they win?
No, no, and you know what? No, but they almost did. The first thing, it's in China, somewhere in China, where it's snowing, and they did not clean the field off. They were used to snow. Vietnamese people were not used to snow. So they're playing in the snow. The end of, I don't know anything about soccer, so I'll misstate it. It was 0-0 at the end of regulation time. They did one overtime, but still 0-0, right? I think the second overtime, Kyrgyzstan got a goal, and Vietnam didn't. But people were so happy. They were so proud that they had been in the contest.
Yeah.
And I think finally in the last overtime, the field was cleared. It was really, I mean, you know, it was a plot, I think. Many places we went still had, even though there was much development, still had rice fields. So these are rice fields outside Hoi An. Go ahead. So these are, you know, folks tending to the rice fields. We're going to be heading to here. This is a cemetery. It's within the rice fields. Next. So there's kind of this hoeing kind of thing going on. So we're seated. There's like a chair in front of the bicycle guy. Go ahead. And my chain broke on my bike, and for some reason it came off, and it took them a while. They couldn't figure out how to fix it for some reason. So we had some time. The guide was ahead of us. He came back, and I had asked him earlier if we were going to go by, could we go to see some rice farmers. So he said, come on, we've got some time. And he went up and he started talking to this lady. And I asked him to ask her if I could take photographs of her, and that was fine. So I think I've got a couple here. So what she's doing is transplanting the rice shoots. When it's first planted, the seeds or the rice is thrown out, it's kind of scattered. So then they move it, rather labor intensive, right, to be in rows, is what I understand. So, next.
Yes.
So that's her.
That's a great picture.
Thank you. I'm really pleased with that.
Yeah.
She's 85 years old.
Oh my.
She's doing this. She's probably been doing this for 80 years, right? Yep. These are fishing nets. We'll get lowered down, and then the fish comes up in the middle. Next. And there'll be a bunch we can go through quickly. Just different kinds of fishing boats. So this is a large river. There was a small river between the old, we're still in Hoi An area, between the old city, you know, where we saw the 4 sacred animals. But then this is a much larger, more industrial, or more fishing intensive river. Often there's a couple, you'll see more, go ahead. This lady, she was very friendly. She is sewing together, I don't remember, leaves, I'm trying to reference bamboo or banana leaves, I think you're right, that to make into like roof coverings, like for, you know, a tiki kind of thing. So that's what she's sewing them so that they can then be made for roofing larger boats. And this guy, you'll see him again in a minute. There's these round dinghy kind of things. Next. There's a whole bunch of them stacked upside down. They're like a dinghy or a little boat that you pull yourself with. Yeah, I don't know why. In Da Nang there are a lot of those too. Nha Trang is right on the coast. There's great beaches in Nha Trang. I think it's the Cam Ranh Bay area. And that billboard was a picture of a development that's coming, like a big hotel. These are hotels. Yeah, it was just really amazing, surprising to me, the amount of
And they're
foreign money, I assume, that's building these things.
And they're right along the waterfront, so that
Yeah.
as you drive, you won't be able to see the waterfront.
It'll be like Miami Beach. Yeah.
Well, there's a park along the water. Actually, there's a park the whole length of the main city next.
His name
So that's this is from our hotel room.
could be.
Next,
Probably Russian.
so just, you know, so it's mountainous nearby, and then this great.
So relatively clean too.
Is that a tennis
Next. Might be. This, when you travel, you know, toilets are important. So this was in the park. I just,
Comfort
comfort as home. And there's a woman's high heel, a man's shoe. One of the really, in Vietnam, and we learned later, maybe throughout Asia, a restroom, a toilet is called a happy house. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So, you know, we always, we were looking for a happy house, or Juan would find a happy house for us. So, I like that. Next. This was instructions within a happy house, within how to use the toilet. You do not squat in it like you do when you have the hole in the ground. The hole in the floor is for squatting, so this is how you sit on a toilet. Next. We walked along the main drag in Nha Trang. So there's a park on one side, and there's lots of restaurants and hotels on the other side of the street. So more food pictures. So there's all kinds of fresh seafood here. Next. This is a crocodile on a spit.
Oh, wow.
This is a great big crocodile on a charcoal on a spit. Next.
That's
A snake and a crocodile. Rotating.
Did you try snake?
No.
Okay.
These I don't know. There's a number of billboards. There was much less propaganda showing in Hanoi than as we got farther south. So you can go, there's 3 or 4 billboards here. I don't really know what they say. And I don't remember, there's kind of 5, not classes of people, but 5 roles in a sense that are, you know, the student, the military, the fisherman, the farmer, maybe and the worker, I guess. Yeah. So I think that's what that depicts. And similarly, we went to a little island that is with a fishing village on. And this is just a school. There were kids out behind the gate as we walked by. Next.
What is it about blue and white?
But they have uniforms.
Yeah. And they have this guy on their backpacks. Next. So this is part of the fishing village. Another one of those round baskets. Next. He is repairing nets. And I don't think I had another close-up. The net is tied around his toe, you know, as he's working on his fishing net. Then as we walk back out, we saw this 2 or 3 times later. I think the bus drivers may live in the luggage compartments of their buses. They certainly spend their off time, their daytime there. Next. He's got a hammock.
Oh, wow.
And I think we saw somebody, I don't know if I have a 3rd one or not. No. So I think we saw somebody cooking in one too. I don't know. So then we went to this, so OATS, Overseas Adventure Travel, is part of, do you remember the name of the company?
Grand Circle.
Grand Circle. And they support schools and things at different places that they take tours. So they support this school. It's not a whole, these are all 5-year-olds. So we are arriving to visit them. They're reading the doorway. Okay, next. Then we're inside playing. Next.
Is this sort of like a nursery school, or is this actually a school where they do schoolwork?
Well, they're 5-year-olds. I think they're doing schoolwork.
Oh, they are? Okay.
Next. She's a great smile.
Oh, they are so
Yeah,
cute.
next.
Beautiful.
This is the principal.
Oh.
And she's just tells about the school. So this is, we can go pretty quick. This is a woven mat, and the next picture will be the women weaving the mats.
Wow.
So you're starting with the
Instead of a
Hmm?
plant material?
Yes.
What?
Oranges.
Hmm? What
Reed?
kind?
Reed?
No, not reed.
Yeah, I don't know, just some kind of a long
Something
grass.
like a
that
grass.
grows, you know.
Yeah. Part of our assignment that day, actually we went to the weaving people first. We're riding on motorbikes behind an experienced driver, and we just happened to, everything is open. Usually they're not, enclosed shops, so it's open in the front. We went and started talking to these folks. And then we were given a small amount of money, divided into groups of 4 people, and to go to the market in this little town to buy food for lunch. And we were going to have lunch with the chief and his family in the village where the school is. So we had only a certain amount of money, and we were supposed to spend it wisely to buy food for lunch. So this is just some market photographs. I didn't. My group was not too wise. We spent all our money on one large thing, one thing.
It wasn't wisdom, it was a lack of bargaining skills.
Yes, yeah, right. We had none.
Is that plantain?
Yeah.
Yeah, bananas. I don't know if they're bananas or plantains. Next. Next. There's just so much wonderful fruit and vegetables. So this is at the chief's house. This is the chief's wife, and they had fish. We didn't buy the fish. So someone's helping. She's showing somebody how to cook it. And they're making drinks. So then we've eaten, and then we're talking. This is Tuan, our guide. This is the chief of the village, his wife, and a neighbor. The chief, his own personal story is that he was in the South Vietnamese army, so he was in the loser, and he was sent to a re-education camp for a year and a half after the war.
Longer than that, I think.
Yeah, might have been. And he then worked for the government once, for the country once, and like a Cornell cooperative extension person, like an agriculture advisor, and got to know lots of people. And he's been the elected chief. I think it was like 12 years for some period of time. So he went from the re-education camp to being an authority figure in the unified country. And very kind, very nice. Next. You can see one of those drying rice paper racks behind him. She's just, there's a number, bamboo. Those others might have been bamboo. It might have been a grass, but a lot of things are made out of bamboo. So go ahead.
Scars are from,
yeah. So, and everything is done by hand, So they're weaving some kind of tray or something. Next. He's making a basket. He's sitting in it as he's curving up the edges. She's making chopsticks. Over here she's got a big knife, big curved knife, and she's making these chopsticks. Nice. She has a finger and a big knife.
Oh.
Chopsticks as well. And just keeps her foot on it. Next. So, people are all just sitting like in this little. So she's making longer things to thread through whatever the first person was doing, the baskets or something. So that's bamboo.
yeah.
Next. And the mat, she's making chopsticks again. So there's the big bamboos and she's making chopsticks. Do you want to keep going? Everybody's fine? Oh, sure. This is, we'll go a little quicker. This is in the Central Highlands. So before we go on those, Central Highlands is very agricultural. This town in the city, not just a town, in the city, called Dalat. But outside Dalat, you take a little train and you go up to this very interesting, unique pagoda. We'll go through and you'll see that everything's made from mosaics. Go ahead. It's all mosaic, all very odd.
Oh, wow.
It's a very large area. There's several buildings. In the basement, there's, or in the lower floor, there's this giant table with all these wood carvings and other carved figures. Go ahead. Next. And farther down is hell. And there's this really cheesy amusement park kind of hell place that has nothing to do with Buddhism. It's all mosaic.
Oh, that's pretty much.
And this is the Lady Buddha. She's made out of flowers. I don't think the flowers change. I think originally it's flowers and these are just like flowers. But that she's very, very big. And these are Lady Buddhas. This is looking out, just to give it an overview. It's kind of mountainous. And they said there are a lot of greenhouses there. There's thousands of greenhouses.
Huh.
Thousands. Everything is covered with greenhouses. Growing mostly flowers. Mostly for export, primarily to Japan. There's many flowers. Go ahead. So this is just the downtowns. This is the hotel we stayed in. That was nice.
Sammy's.
There's a university there, and they arranged that we would meet with some students who are taking English, so that the students could converse with somebody in English. This is the train station. Next, we take this little train, very old train. So here's some of the greenhouses that we're going by as we go up to the pagoda. Then the next day we have a tour within the agricultural areas. So lots of flowers.
Wow.
And the sky.
Oh, that's a beautiful picture. That is gorgeous.
There are also many coffee plantations in the, I don't know if you call them plantations, but in the Dalat area. It's also famous for its coffee. And some of those trees that you're seeing are coffee trees. It's mountainous again, and there's coffee. This structure is a kind of a coffee bar that we went to. I don't drink coffee at all. I can't stand the taste of coffee, so I was the only one not enjoying. So John, tell us about the coffee in Vietnam. Go ahead. Next picture.
Well, I don't know, you have pictures of the weasels?
I do. Want to get to that first?
Yeah.
Here's some. So part of what we did, we went to the Weasel. They're famous for weasel coffee. You heard of weasel coffee?
Yeah, disgusting.
So here's a coffee flower. Then there's the unripe, the green beans, ripe beans.
Oh, no.
Weasels eat the coffee beans and excrete the coffee bean.
Right. Yeah, apparently there's something in their digestive system, when they eat the outer shell or coating over the bean, it kind of breaks down some of the acid in the coffee bean itself. And so then they clean and process the bean itself. They collect the...
That doesn't come,
It improves the taste of the bean.
oh my heavens, that doesn't come to the States, does it? Like, we're
It's
not
very
drinking it.
expensive.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're not drinking it, right? In the regular coffee.
No, you're not.
I want to know who discovered the process.
Yeah. Well, they told us about that.
Oh, really?
But I don't know if we have time. But basically, the way I remember it, and John can chime in, as the beans ripened, the coffee farmers or pickers went to, they went back the next day to pick the beans, and the beans would be gone. And then they would find beans around on the ground. And I think finally they started watching, and somebody saw weasels coming, picking the beans and eating them. So they started saying, I guess they tried them. I don't know when this was, how many years ago. So they tried making coffee from the beans they found on the ground. They thought it was even better than what they were picking from the trees. So now they raised the weasels. So these are beans drying. This is how they drink coffee in Vietnam. It's a single cup, and what would that be? Is it?
Well, it's kind of like
Is it
a drip.
percolating?
I guess it drips.
A drip. But in Vietnam,
Looks
they
like a French press.
they take. There wasn't a press in it though, was it?
Does it taste like regular coffee?
Yeah, actually it does.
And do they have flavor coffees, or is it just one flavor?
No, it's really just one flavor on that. The stuff's like $250 a pound.
The weasel coffee.
It's very
the
rare.
weasel coffee.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fake weasel coffee out there. So we ended up having at least the guy took us to
We went
the
to a
place
woman.
where
Yeah.
we knew it was legitimate because it's kind of easy to put a weasel label on just about anything.
Is it a strong coffee?
It's very strong. They drink it with condensed milk.
Yeah, well, that's what they normally drink
Wow.
coffee, but yeah.
A video. This is a video. Good. They're supposedly singing in English, we had what was called, next one, a home-hosted dinner. This lady was our host. That's her youngest child. And 4 of us, I think, came to dinner, and that's her in-laws. That's her older son and her in-laws, and it's actually the in-laws' home, and the father-in-law had I think he raised carnations in greenhouses.
Wow.
But the government was going to force him to sell, and they were going to put housing in there. So the Montagnard people were part of the American Allies, maybe the only American Allies in the Vietnam War. Their village is near Dalat, or a village. It's extremely rough road. This guy's driving a tractor with a flatbed behind it that we're sitting on. So this is their little village hall. They are Catholic, so there's a Catholic church and also the more traditional, kind of like a Native American kind of totem. It looks like a cell tower behind it. This is the edge of the school, and this is a solar water tank, and you saw those everywhere. The government pays for solar water heaters. These kids, these were just 2 boys that were playing. Kids didn't seem to be in school. They're throwing this. There's an empty soda bottle full of sand or something that is being tossed. This is their game, being tossed at this other bottle. These are coffee beans drying outside. And next, there's coffee beans. This is the chief of that village, and his wife, who's just woven. She's reading that. Ho Chi Minh City. This is flying over. It's a very large, dense city. A lot of modern buildings in Ho Chi Minh City. The south, Ho Chi Minh City is quite different from Hanoi. Tuan, our guide, is from a village north of Hanoi and sees people being different in the sense that there's much more shopping and interest in fashion and those kinds of goods. Young people find jobs in IT and cyber kinds of things here. This is just views from the hotel of just the buildings around. They had a very nice pool on the top of the hotel, and the skyline from there. One little artsy one. This is in the middle of Ho Chi Minh City, Starbucks, Fame musical.
No McDonald's?
Yeah, you'll see a McDonald's in a minute. Yeah. But all this but the traffic goes. In Hanoi, there are no stoplights or stop signs. There are in Ho Chi Minh City. In Hanoi, there are not. There's that much traffic, and you just have to take that wander, and you start walking. If you stop, is when you cause an accident. If you walk at a relatively slow pace, consistent pace, just all this stuff stacked on here, and I go to the next mask. The reason my mask. She has a hood, a visor, long gloves, a skirt over her. Tuan told us, and there were quite a few people in Ho Chi Minh City like that, not in other places. But he said that, this is his saying, that many Vietnamese women will cover themselves up so that they don't get suntanned. So their skin stays very pale. So that's why, supposedly, and so the mask is not for everybody. It's not necessarily for the fumes, but it can cover a lot of your face. You have your helmet on, and keep you from being like me, red. I think this is a video.
It's like Scarlett O'Hara.
Yeah. Just a brief idea of the traffic. We're in a bus. It's almost done. So you see a lot of masks on people. People are going slowly, like 20 miles an hour. Next. There were some very fancy stores. There was one section that was very, very fancy. And then this was, we were just, go ahead, next, women rock. This was a Coke ad, and it moved, you know, just because of how I took the picture I got. But the Coke ad was a Vietnamese star, with the Coke label. We had pizza there twice, it was very good. Next. Crocodile products. Designer t-shirts, it looks like, or designer shirts. John was impressed with the municipal wiring. He wanted to show that to MLD. And that was one of the more recent ones. Yeah. Church being restored. Next.
Oh, I like the clock.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, there's a Dunkin'.
And Popeyes. This is a famous landmark. It's the post office. It still functions as a post office. Next. Yellow is also, remember back at Ho Chi Minh's place, there's the same color yellow. I asked about that. It's for good fortune. This is just within there's Ho, that's Ho Chi Minh, within the post office, this beautiful ceiling, some old map. Next. McDonald's.
Where's the McDonald's? Oh, they don't have the arches? Where's the arches?
No, but it's all golden.
Oh, there's the arch, small one.
You see an arch?
It was like a flag or something.
We probably should, this is, go ahead and go through. This was a wonderful, wonderful, really important museum. It's called the War Remnants Museum. That is very difficult in many ways to see. So it's about the Vietnam War, which they call the American War. But it was full of, this one exhibit was about journalists, photographers who were killed during the war, and pictures of their work, and a section on Agent Orange. But another section of what leading up to the war, and all the different, Eisenhower, all the different presidents who had some part in escalating putting our presence there and escalating it. Many, well documented in terms of newspaper articles or other contemporaneous information. It was very powerful. And these posters are outside, these posters about peace and cooperation. Now we're at the best noodle soup place in all of Vietnam. Next. Pho, P-H-O, is pronounced pho, and that's the kind of soup. These are greens that you can add. And this is my chicken soup, my chicken noodle soup.
Ooh, that looks
And the bowl was like that.
Oh, that looks
excellent. We can do these really quickly, Janet. These are just people. We rode on those boats. We went to this place for lunch, and they had wonderful.
Whoops, sorry.
That's all. The fish. The Coochie tunnels are important, and it ends with this. The tunnels are where the Viet Cong. There were Viet Cong, and it wasn't a defensive position. It was more the intelligence headquarters. There were tunnels underground, and there's something. Maybe it's like those bricks being made. That particular area, the ground is like cement, and so it doesn't cave in apparently. And the first tunnels were during the French. So this is. He has to wear our shirts that day. So they're carrying. That was just an example. They're carrying in a wounded. It was intelligence and it was a surgery for a wounded. So that's just part of what's this. So this is above ground. Next. This is a sniper hole. So this is what the terrain looks like above the tunnels, just jungly. This is a video. Oh.
Oh my gosh. Oh no. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can go to the next one.
Yep, that one.
So it's it says constructing bamboo spike traps to protect villages and hamlets. And that's what that way, you step on it and you it swings. Next. So that's just a still picture of the same thing. Yeah.
The rest is history.
This is a tunnel entrance, an entrance to the tunnel. This was a local guide at the tunnel, so he's smaller than me. So there's like this rectangular opening. He's lowering himself in it. Goes next.
Oh, wow.
There's a top to pull down. Next.
Wow. Isn't that amazing?
Huh.
And this is within the tunnel.
Wow.
Some of the tunnel. It's really extensive. There are some wards in the front. This is, mannequins, but showing like an ER, a MASH unit. This is the headquarters for the, like the chiefs planning their operations. There's one of the maps. This is a kitchen down under in the tunnels. And this is just to show that the smoke from the kitchen comes out somewhere, not directly where the kitchen is, somewhere else, so you can't really tell where it's coming from. And if I'm recalling right, this area, the Americans didn't go there on foot. They were being bombed like 10,000 feet up, right? So they wouldn't really know what they were aiming at, I guess, in terms of the way the tunnels are. Next. This is cassava. Cassava? That was the main diet for the Army, Viet Cong. And these two men are retired Viet Cong. And they had us to lunch, our group went to lunch.
Oh,
and
wow.
they do this. I think the gentleman on the left, one of them is, so they both were then career military, and one of them is head of the veterans group in the area. And they were, that's it. They were very, very pleasant, and they were very gracious, answered all kinds of questions, and we didn't know them, they didn't know any of us. But at one point, I think the one who was head of the veterans just said he it was through the interpreter, I don't think he spoke English. But he wanted to thank us, Americans, for protesting the war. And talked about how they understood that the American people are separate from the American government, that it's not the same, or not necessarily the same, but it sounded like the protest of the war was, you made it sound like it was significant to them, and maybe confirmed that the government was. And I suppose, too, looking at their history with the French government, or whoever, maybe there were Vietnamese who were the puppet figures during the French, and they would know from other experiences that the government is not necessarily the people. So that is our trip. That is our Sorry, 2 hours.
No, it's absolutely amazing. It was beautiful.
If I didn't talk at everyone, it would go faster.
I have some treats out in the other room.
It wouldn't mean as much though.
I have it, a presentation by Penelope Clute, photographer, presented here at the Champlain Meeting House on the trip that she and her husband John took to Vietnam. So, thanks for watching. You're watching viewer-supported Hometown Cable TV. We think is worthy of everyone's support. So, if you understand that, please feel free to support our continuing efforts. Hometown Cable. Thanks for watching.